welcome to the audiobook of Always the Horizon by Murdoch. It's presented to you by Livid Productions. As published by Murdoch in November of 2021, a copyright. He says you can do whatever with it, basically, as do I. Disclaimer. Reader discretion is advised. As published on Poll. And we will begin with his introduction. First, I just wanted to say you're all a bunch of faggots. Secondly, I would like to thank Poll and the 4Cheds community in general. You forever changed me for the better. When I first came here, I hated you. I thought you were all a bunch of mean-spirited racists. LOL. However, in time, I began to understand what you were fighting for, and eventually I too joined your cause. Do you remember what it was like before Trump? We never thought we could change anything. We were sure that Europe was lost. But now I know Europe will live. I know that in the end, even if we do not live to see it, the European Continuum will live on, to see tomorrow's dawn. I know that a lot of content creators on the internet say that they love their fans. And I know how hollow that can sound, but I do love you guys. You were my comrades in the trenches throughout these turbulent years. You broke me free from their system. You destroyed my nihilism. You helped me once again find God, or purpose, or whatever we will call it. The whole internet calls you guys the worst of the worst, but it simply isn't true. You were the best of your generations. They call you incels, freaks, and losers, but that is false. You are the few who decided to bravely face the unknown, to ride out into the horizon chasing the sun. I still don't know what those early threads must have been like when you guys were first coming to terms with race realism, sex realism, and the Jewish question. Some say it started around 2008, but we all know that that sacred flame came from communities much older than this anime image board. This little book is dedicated to George Lincoln Rockwell, Savitri Devi, William Luther Pierce, Adolf Hitler, Charles Darwin, Terence McKenna, Friedrich Nietzsche, Abba Akadund, and all of you who fight for the European Continuum. Whether your eyes are blue or green, I love you. Even if you're not a white person, or only partially white, I love you. What I've come to see is that it's about something much larger than the white race. This is about whether or not there will be knowing within being. Yes, it's true that through the European Continuum there exists the greatest propensity towards knowing, but one does not have to be European to aid that force. That's what you're really fighting for, you know. You built the microscope to look out into the microscopic world. You built the telescope to look out at the heavens. Like Hume, you look towards what we can see. And like Kant, you look towards what we cannot see. Always pursuing the knowing. Always chasing the sun. If Europe dies, and the Semite is made to rule the earth and fulfill his machinations, being will lose its ability to know itself. That's why you must fight. And that is why you, the non-white, must aid the Aryan. That is why you, the young European girl, must make as many beautiful white babies as you can handle. That is why you, my white brothers in arms, must give everything to defend our peoples. Murdoch. Chapter 1. The Graveyard. Here we sit in the graveyard of Europe. No banner lies untattered, no grave undesecrated, a cornucopia of corpses, some green-eyed and some blue. And which was the master race again? Who was it that won the most glory-killing white men? These graves have only grown in size, and each new generation lives ever more in their shadow. What do these traditionalists even hold on to? Like a man in despair cradling his dead child, Does he really believe his embrace could bring back a lifeless thing? Does he not know that the materialist has disproved magic? And if there were magic, then surely our world would not have met the cruel fate that befell it during the 20th century. Why have you come here, Rider? To the grave of your fatherland? Have you come to follow me? Know that I lead no man, but if you wish to become my companion, then I must make a single request of you. If we are to take up this task and travel the all too arduous path, then you must promise me that your eyes will remain transfixed, always on the horizon. There we will chase the sun. But of course, that is why you are here, is it not? Surely you must be the child of the gutter, or are you nameless, yet named, like me? It does not matter what we call ourselves, for names and egos are useless where we are going, and our only interest must be in finding the purpose. The purpose, you wonder, is it not obvious? The antidote to heal our dying world. The answer to the riddle of the death of God. Surely you must know of the war the materialist waged against the mystic and his God. The materialist would know triumph, but it was a Pyrrhic victory. With the death of the mystic, and not soon long after, so too the vitalists. Until the last of the romantics had all but faded, the world became systematized and sterile. It was the heart of a Semitic god that was pierced by the materialist's arrow. For our gods had long been in the tomb, forgotten. In truth, it was only the latest deracination. Should we blame Hume? Should we gnash our teeth and curse Socrates? Or perhaps we should accept that they were merely expressing the most Aryan of all principles, to look out at the horizon. Where there was Achilles or Christ, now there lies the tenebrious void. As a result of the loss of objective meaning, we begin to sink into the swamps of sadness by our own volition. A quarter of our kind have become hedonists, and another quarter have become ascetic. Half of them run on mere Darwinian survival impulses, with no glimpse into the here and now, with no humanity. But you must love them all the same, Rider, for our task is to rescue from peril the European Continuum. Look all around you. These graves mark the history of this all too impressive animal and its variants. This hollowed ground covered in Celtic chainmail, Scythian arrowheads, Roman legionary scutums, and German battle axes will all serve to remind us of our propensity for violence. Know this. You must never shirk from violence or join ranks with a humanitarian who views violence as feckless and unfashionable. Violence has always been the sidearm of the noble. However, this violence must never derive from the wicked and cruel, just as the aim of the Aryan is to pursue the fundamental truth. So too his aptness for war can only be maximized by a noble pursuit. But look at this field, Rider. These weapons were used by white men to impale one another. These beings with the same capacity to reason, to develop such lovely arts and novelty, using the same eyes to peer into reality, reduced to maggot feet in their youths. What tragedy it was that we ever branched apart from that initial Indo-European language. Had we only the ability to communicate, had we only an aerial view of our tiny existence on this planet, filled with men and monsters. What fools the Greeks were to butcher such a pristine beauty during the Peloponnesian War. How could the Spartan not admire the elaborate Athenian art and philosophy? How could the Athenian not love the Spartan for his prowess in battle? Were they not the same being who had ventured towards different paths along the horizon, chasing the sun? Look how that conflict weakened them both, even if we peer into the darkest age, the 20th century, when the French, German, British, and more all exhausted themselves in world wars. One must continue to ask, for what? To allow a vampiric Semitic banking system to dominate the planet? For a field of graves and banners that no one will even remember? You saw yourselves as flags and countries, kings and borders, religions and economic systems, but never once did you see yourselves as Europe, as beings with a similar capacity to know, to advance the knowing. That all of you, who now lay dormant in the cold earth, were brothers in the apex of the hierarchy of being. We've been blind, Ryder. We have crippled ourselves in a pursuit of primitive patriotism. A patriotism built around memetics that allows for white men to impale white men. But a great flag waving as the naive nationalist firebombs white women and children in our ancient cities. What glory do these primitive patriots seek when they manifest propaganda to convince the German that he is not German and should not wish to be? But we will force him to be, like a body that wishes to die, but is resuscitated by man's technology, by man's will. We will resurrect them back from the grave. The earth will once more know Rhodesia, the Yamanaya, Dixie, and the Dorian. And they shall know themselves as the Aryan first and foremost. A single banner will fly amongst them, and they will yield to no one. Look here at this grave, Ryder. The grave of a little one of our kind, her body ravaged by our own technology at the hands of a Mohammedan ghoul. Tell me, how many men that lie here in this mass grave could know she was born in Stockholm from her face alone? Could she not just as easily be from Glasgow, Dallas, Marseille, Berlin, or New Jersey? What a repugnant worldview these primitive patriots maintain, to deny the unification of beings capable of such a vital array. For the lightning bolt on our banner will stand on any European soil. For we are not Irish or German. We are not Americans or Canadians. We are a concept, a living ideal. A testament that says that no matter where on this earth these beings stand, there too will we stand with them. And if the German says I am German first and foremost and can never fly under any banner but my own, then so be it. Know this, German. For even if you gnash your teeth and spit in my face, I will not flee from you. Even when danger looms and the sky turns black with a torrent of arrows and an infinity of bombs, I will stand next to you, sword and shield, shoulder to shoulder, mind to mind, being to being. It is an endless journey that we take up, each generation carrying our banner to the next. That is the nature of the European Continuum. We must hold both Sparta and Athens, the farmer and the man of the metropolis, the rich and the beggars, the old and the young, the masculine and the feminine, the continental and the analytic philosophers. For if our aim is true, and we ride straight for the sun, all paths, all philosophies will merge. The inner world will meet the outer world, for there in the heart of the sun, in its warm embrace, is fundamental truth. They are right to say that we will never know this truth. How absurd that a mere aspect of being would be able to take in the totality of being. Like Icarus, we shall fail in our pursuit. We shall plummet down to the earth from the heavens and break our backs. But even then, as we lay ruined on the rocks, we will still pursue it. Our fractured hands still held out toward the sun. We will seek truth regardless of our capacity to understand, even if Kant is to say, all that we seek is an illusion. And we shall say, yet it exists, and it must be pursued, for even illusions are in the nature of being. Now, take up your father's flag, and let it serve as your cloak to keep your pale skin from the elements. But remember this, that cross, and those colors, even my red, white, and blue, can all be forgotten. Have you not heard? The age of the traditionalist is over. The conservative is but a mortician in the morgue, a practitioner of the grave, whose job it is to fill the corpse with embalming fluid, to present the carcass as what it was and what it could never be ever again. Do not fool yourself, Ryder. We are not conservatives. We do not merely wish to hold on to the heirlooms of our fathers, to sit by idly as our empires are made irrelevant. I wish for us to take, and to take without qualms. But the modern man, the conservative, is like a defanged lion who is rendered horror-struck at the taste of blood. A once proud animal, now domesticated. In spite of this, if you choose to join me down this path, Ryder, you will become a wild animal again. The wild man of Alexander of Macedon, the hungry lion. You will learn to embrace Dionysus and his chaos, which always brings forth opportunity. For it is fitting that here in the 21st century, in the age of chaos, when calamity runs unopposed, that so too in this time would we see a rebirth of the third positionist, the fascist, and the National Socialist, the romantic, and the dreamer of dreams. We should be swift and on our way, for twilight wanes, and if we are to lose track of the sun, we shall only betray our endeavor. Drink up this place, Ryder. But know that nostalgia is a poison when consumed in excess. Take with you your sword before your shield, and your tenacity before your reason. Remember that courage was born in despair. Was it not Merkel who compelled you towards this way? When Europe was made open like a flesh wound, a Hundine at the head of the German animal, who drove mud and sick into the very organs of the body politic. That was what brought me here, Ryder. My spirit only knew despair when I learned that our heartland would be lost, that Germania would be rendered null. For the colonies I could bear to lose, their destruction seemed a mere failed project. But to lose the motherland completely, to have the core of the continuum mutilated by genetic warfare, for the death of America was only a corruption of a single branch, but to carve out the very trunk of Europe. It was then that I donned the lightning bolt. A lonely life it can be, to hold lightning and chase the sun. It is well for you to remember that on our journey there will be monsters, which are all too often terrible. But the cruelest monster you will find is the one that you love. Perhaps friends or family have expelled you from their lives because your undertaking threatened their illusions. That is the pain the child of Goethe must bear. How strange it is to live in a time when fathers weep that their sons wish to take up the old banner and mothers encourage their daughters' genetic degeneration. When brother sells out brother for the taste of narcotics, and a generation of children is raised up in the ashes of the apocalypse as communists and capitalists with no real connection to the blood. When every root is cut and stripped from the tree, still we will love them all the same, for it is our destiny to bear the unbearable, to carry the continuum onward, to whatever end. No step forward should be undertaken until you thoroughly understand our task. It is not to restore Beethoven and the Colosseum, nor to live under their shadow, but to surpass them. We will not tirelessly recall when we were once remarkable. Rather, we shall be remarkable. Do you not see that we must shake off this inaction and venture once more into the wild unknown, such that we too will become wild? That ever greater monuments to our experience remain in stone, waiting to be carved by Aryan hands. We will not be content. We will not sit full and satisfied, wishing to drift back to sleep. For we ask that the European animal once again awakens. Even if upon his returning to the conscious world, in his wrath the skies turn to fire, the seas dry up, and the earth is scorched permanently, even then it will have been worth it. For the fields of desolation shall serve as fertile soil. You know all too well that destruction is merely creation, Ryder. Tell them, those primitive patriots, that I am the sacred clown, the great iconoclast of modernity, and I have come to witness blood and chaos, and finally, the regrowth of the European vine. Let the slave world stand aghast as red hats become Stahlhelms. Free yourself, Ryder, or the cruel hatred of this slave world bellows forth to reveal your way. For you to even be here in this graveyard of your fathers has already marked you. To shed tears for the land you cannot return to is tantamount to treason in this late hour. Now you must bid this place farewell, like sailors slowly losing track of the coast. For how else can one voyage? How else can one follow the sun if they are incapable of leaving their homes? Truthfully, I have given up on motherlands and fatherlands, for geographical ideals and absurdities. For where my people stand, that is my state. Whether they were here on this mountain for 1,000 years, or there on that island for 200, how could land ever be as sacred as blood? A cold wind now blows through these half-dead trees. This place is no longer safe, and we must halt our weeping. Take what you want from here, rider, but as you know, only your flesh is essential. Only your ability to manifest and reflect on reality. Only your elan vital. Soon the Semitic tone will ring in our ears once more. This place will fall to darkness and be made archaic. All that we cannot carry will be lost to time. Where there was once civilization, there will be ruin. Legal systems that represented the pinnacle achievements of our kind, which has been in the development for aeons, will be rewritten by creatures with the cognitive abilities of 12-year-olds. To think that it has come to such madness. Hurry and gather your supplies, for only a handful that dwell here will follow you, and even less of them will know the jeopardy that seeks them in this place. In the end, the tide of the nothing, that great torrent of black, will wash away all life that persists. Decay is a slow process, until the inevitable total collapse. The women who remain will be absorbed into the Afro-Semitic amalgamation, and the men I dare not call men. The cosmopolitan European, the eunuch. What a friend to the elite he has become. These anti-natalists, for only their own people. These quote-unquote men. I get no pleasure from chastising him, writer. It is a spell that he is under. He has not studied our history, and what history he has learned was written by Semitic hands. He believes he is cultured only when he despises our culture, only when he declares that he is from the tainted tree, that he himself has cut the root by his own volition in the pursuit of social justice. And as he does so, all the more he falls into dejection. I will not lie to you, there are many among his ranks who will gnash their teeth and fight to the death, all to hide the truth of their slave morality. But there is not one, you know, that has been caught in a spell, and yet still a thread of hope for our world has remained. Were you not there once, writer? For I was your enemy in my youth. I'm ashamed of how long it took me to come into the know. But each of us must travel our own path, and the ugliness of that spell later only hardened my resolve. So love him, writer. Love this fool under a spell. For many of them, here in the 21st century, will hear our call and become enchanted, for we romantics are natural magicians. I pray your horse is swift, for we cannot stay here for too much longer. Even if our hearts long to bring those who will not come, you know the danger that makes way, so why do you linger here in this graveyard? Do you think me mad? That my answer would be to uproot ourselves completely, to cut the final thread, to become anti-traditionalist? To ask ourselves what good is 2,000 years of Semitic Aryans in the cathedrals? What good are fragments of pottery from long-dead Hellenes whom I can never truly know? What good is the Enlightenment that brings about nothing? What good is the Omnia when I can only dream of them? I say to hell with maintaining decay. I look to the future from within. It's only there, in the inner mode of being, that we can finally regrow the sacred vine. Now I will tie the red, white, and blue on my wrist and tear a page from Darwin and keep it in my pocket. Finally, this here red flag with a black swastika. That symbol as ancient as our kind, encircled by the white sun that we follow. That will be my cloak. My 7 generations hate me for this symbol, but know that the 8th will take up its cause. But this symbol flown by the adversary of my father's father marked me as an enemy of those who hollow out the eyes of our people. Let it serve as a reminder of my promise to the German. These will be my only possessions. Now, what is it that you will take from this place, Ryder? Know that each item you carry will only weigh you down. Yet also remember that these objects serve to warm us in the quiet moments when our eyes lose sight of the horizon, and we must accept rest. Do not forget that these fragments of our past histories that lie all around you here in this graveyard are only physical pieces of our mimetic history. So much more is written into your blood itself, there in the realm of instinct. Verily, I wish not to forget all the footsteps in our journey from beast to man. However, our task is to find the new man. Will you take the coiled black snake and yellow as your cape? Is that how you will recall liberty? Or perhaps a 50-pound bust of Socrates on a chain that you can carry around your neck as a means to always remind you of your infatuation with freedom? Will you fill your boots with cement so as to not forget how to create it? As its formula was forgotten in the collapse of Rome, but still better, let us take the whole graveyard with us, so that when we meet the new man, we can give him a field of corpses. Now, to have our eyes here on the grave fixed on what it was will only obstruct our gaze in the pursuit of what can be. In short, I'm not a man of the West. Western civilization is but a single road on the greater journey. I'm a child of the horizon, a broken remnant of the Aryan, an aspect of being, or as Mussolini put it, a feeling. Yes, perhaps you're right to label me mad, to suggest the answer should be cut off the ligament. It had become infected. What hysteria to bring a blade upon oneself in a desperate attempt to return to homeostasis. What a fatal action it is to draw a dagger across flesh to remove the rot. You must cut it out, Ryder. Look around you, all these conservatives. Look how they worship a bust of Socrates. Look how pristine they attempt to keep these flags. What care they bring to the maintenance of the quaint old English home. But what of the maintenance of man? Look to the deification of this graveyard and its urns. Look how they worship at the stone and iron, but never the blood. I'm not glad that it's come to this, that such times would befall us, and that we would only live to see not only our homes taken, but even our memories. Alas, this place I once too called home, a museum of our heritage that's now ablaze, you can desperately try to save what you can. But know this, Ryder. You and your blood, that's all that must be saved. It is the blood that is paramount, and your most precious possession. It is an error made all too often in our age, that a man's worth is found in his dedication to our graves, that the black is white if he adores our ruins, that the African rebuilds himself into the European only if he can be made to love our corpses. Even the head of these right-wing parties that supposedly speak for us do so like men crossing a frozen lake, each step placed with caution and fear, like sailors never coming too close to the sirens for fear of crashing their ship on the rocks, for they must remain electable, optical. I say let us crash that ship. Let us make love to the sirens and sing their song. Do you not know what they sing, Ryder? That Europe is blood, that Europe is a state of being, and it is this song that these right-wing pundits and politicians are all too afraid to hear, to sing. Do not weep, Ryder. There, out on the horizon, we will find that things aren't as aimless as they seem. Whether we are to be deterministic or if we should carry with us free will, I shall hold on to destiny. There is a motivated movement that trembles throughout the eternity of this universe, this realm, this being. If one is to put his ear to the ground and listen carefully, he will hear the trembling of its development, the heartbeat that propels this existence ever towards its conclusion. You will come to know that the European Continuum is an indispensable element in this manifestation, but let us save that for the road ahead. We are not ready yet to wield the sacred sword, a weapon that we must carry into battle against the nihilist, the existentialist, the pessimist, the absurdist, and the undreamer. Let them know that we under this banner have romantic hearts, that we shall meet this suffering that has captivated the Buddhist with zeal, with smiles on our faces. For a world without dragons is a world without heroes. We declare ourselves the protagonists of history. But we ask for suffering so that we may endure it. That we ask for the impossible to surmount a mountain so that we may prove over and over again that nothing is impossible. Whether we see the sun or we do not see the sun, we will ever move in its direction with our eyes transfixed, always the horizon.